Do you want to have better conversations? Do you want to have better connection, more influence? Then this week's book is for you. Because this week I'm going to cover The Next Conversation by Jefferson Fisher. And the full title of the book is The Next Conversation, Argue Less, Talk More. And I'm going to tell you straight out, I love this book. This is one of my favorite books I've read this year, or read in the last year. It was fantastic. It's written, Jefferson Fisher is an attorney, and he's really talking about giving what he's learned. He comes from a family of attorneys. So, his dad's an attorney, his granddad's an attorney. And, he's just sharing the wisdom that he's gained in how to have the right conversation. And so it's not a book full of a bunch of studies or psychobabble or any of that kind of stuff. It's not an academic book. It's kind of like folksy wisdom. And he narrates the book. I listened to it on Audible. It was so enjoyable to listen to. I was disappointed when the book was over. There were some chapters in the book that I can't wait to reread again. I can't actually wait to listen to the book again. I've already joined his little club. I mean, I'm all in. I like this guy. And he got his claim to fame. He has millions of followers on social media. I mean, and it all started with he just started doing these like 1 minute type of videos from his truck about just hey, if you want to be a better conversationalist, do this. And he has millions of followers, and he's a sought after speaker, and he seems like a good dude. He seems like a good dad and a good husband and somebody to be fun to sit around and beach chairs and drink a beer with. But the book is full of all sorts of wisdom. I'm going to share some of those wisdom points, and then I'm actually going to give you some collateral material. I'm going to show you where you can go on his website and get a bunch of really good stuff. So I'm not going to do my typical chapter by chapter thing. There's just so many nuggets in this book. Instead, I'm going to just cover some of the nuggets and invite you to read the book. The book, the Audible, was about, I think it was 6 hours and 36 minutes. I think the book's less than 300 pages. You're going to really like this. So let's just go through some of the key takeaways. First, arguments are windows, not wars. And this just tells you the kind of the concept, the way this book works. And what Jefferson says is, look, the person you see isn't the person you're talking to. And what that means is the person that we're showing everybody, the person that showed up to the conversation isn't the real person. The real person is something totally different beneath it. And it could be like, pretend you're working with somebody and they seem to have a poor attitude. You go, gosh, this person has a poor attitude. And that's what you see. But what you don't see is the drama in their life or the stress in their life. You don't see those things. You don't see underneath the surface. And so you always have to be really careful to see the person whom you're not talking to, which is a very interesting concept. He did a really good job on that. And this is the thing that he says. This is the key. This is the whole part of the book. The next conversation matters more, right? The next conversation matters more than any previous conversation you've had, because you can change everything in your next conversation. And that's what the whole book is about. And that's just a really good concept. I really loved his whole thing about connection, because in order to have a good conversation, you have to have connection, right? And connection has two parts. He said two-factor authentication, and it requires understanding and acknowledgement, right? So true connection involves sharing information with depth and acknowledging it. Well, that's the connection. It connects. If I'm talking to you and I go, do I understand what you just told me? Is that correct? Right? And so I'm showing you my understanding, and then I acknowledge your thought. Well, that's a good thought. That's a helpful thought. Thank you. Right? And so that's great. Now, there's 3 connection killers he covers in this chapter. It's a lack of awareness, a lack of understanding, and a lack of self-assurance. All 3 can cut off connections. And so he talks about all 3 of those, by the way. Another really good concept in the book is control yourself before you control the moment. And in that, he teaches you triggers. Hey, and I love this part. This part I probably have to listen to a couple times. But he talks about ignition and cooling. And and as it relates to arguments, we all know about that, right? We all know when we start to ignite. Like if we're having a conversation and all of a sudden it turns into an argument, and we can feel the triggers that go up, whether it's physiologically or emotionally, mentally, we can feel that triggers that leads to what he calls ignition. And so he talks all the time about ignition. How do you avoid ignition? When you see it in someone else, how can you slow it down? How can you get to the cooling period where we start to back off of that ignition? And so he talks about learning your own triggers. And then in dealing with other people, he starts to give you tools like breath and awareness. And by the way, breath has a whole bunch to do about communication in this book. He talks about it in several different ways. Like your first word needs to be breath when you're having a difficult conversation. And that just although the book has folksy wisdom in it, there is technique. There is a lot of technique. There is some conversational structures that you can get out of it. And then this is another really interesting thing: the role that assertiveness plays in a conversation. And what it and in the quote is, confidence is assertiveness in action. Confidence doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you do it scared, right? And he goes into this confidence that earned. But he went. I really enjoyed this part. This is another part that I'm eager to listen to again. Assertive vocabulary, how to be assertive. He talks about why it's important to be assertive, because it adds confidence to the conversation, and it's respectful, and it's actually more effective in communication. And then he goes through all sorts of conservative vocabulary and assertive techniques and words not to use and words to use. I really appreciate that. Things like, you have to really eliminate over apologies, and he goes through a whole bunch of examples and eliminate you got to eliminate your filler words, over apologies, phrases that undermine your worth, like self-depreciating phrases, things that we all get into the habit of doing. And so I really enjoyed that concept in that chapter. And then he talks about, and a lot of these things he uses as examples, like from a client or from a meeting or from a conversation. Well, he use a real life example, and they're really neat little stories that you kind of get into, and then he teaches you lessons through that. And he talks about defensiveness, and he says defensiveness kills conversation. And then the other, and what he talks about repeatedly, you don't want to win an argument. The person that wins the argument probably suffers a relationship, right? And in that, the person who speaks last in an argument often loses, because what is an argument about? It's about escalation, right? I say something that argue with you, and then you reply back by escalating, and then I escalate back, and then because we're trying to win, right? And all that does is harm the relationship, and so it's never worthwhile to win the argument. Always preserve the relationship. And in that, he talked about, the person that speaks last is the person that really actually, they think they win, but they're really losing. And so that's great. And then he talks about frames, focused conversations. The fewer the words, the clearer the point. He talks about how to frame conversations, and this was super useful in the book. And he talks about three clear parameters, 3-step framing, and I love the whole three-step framing. And what that is it's just perfect. You get the person's attention from the get-go, and you promise them what you're going to talk about, and you get their permission to do it. It's really good. And so I really like that part of the book. So I can keep going. I love this book. It had great stuff. But you know what I'm going to do, instead of continuing just to kind of give you what I thought were some of my favorite parts of the book, I'm going to give you a really good glimpse of the book. And here's what I'm going to do. First, I am going to show you the cover of the book. So this is the cover of the book. The next conversation, argue less, talk more. But then you know what I'm going to do? I am going to share with you some collateral material from the book. And this is if you go to Jefferson Fisher's website. And I think the website is... I think the nextconversation.com is the website, and you can get there's all sorts of collateral materials like this PDF. And on this PDF, this PDF right here is the top 7 phrases to stand your ground in an argument. So that's if you're getting just totally bulldozed. These are the top 7 phrases. And I'm going to share these with you so that you kind of get what you can get out of this book, because this is just a glimpse of how it is in every chapter, how he's giving you suggestions and techniques and words in every chapter. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. I just want to give you a taste of it. So phrase number 1, I will not be spoken to that way, right? Stand your ground, be assertive, right? Number 2, I don't respond to that volume. Number 3, I see it differently. Number 4, I will when I'm ready. That's when you don't let somebody just totally, bulldoze you. Number 5, if you continue to do blank, this will end this. This will be the end of this conversation, right? Number 6 is I understand you disagree. And number 7 is I get to decide that. You don't get to decide that for me. Now, you know what? I actually wanted to show you the 10 power phrases because they're actually better. So I'm sorry. Let's go through 10 power phrases. I promise I'll wrap this up. 10 power phrases that help communication. 1, maybe you're right. 2, I can do better. 3, that's helpful to know. 4, I can't hear you when you interrupt me. And he has a whole chapter about people that interrupt and difficult people. And he has a bunch of techniques on how you can positively try to stop people from interrupting you. It's a really good chapter. Number 5, I remember things differently. Number 6, don't apologize for my feelings. Apologize for what you did. And that is, and he gets into the no empathy apology or the fake apology. And it's really interesting that there's a portion of a chapter on poor apologies. It was really interesting and how you should react to a bad apology. But if somebody says, I'm sorry you feel that way, that's you go, don't apologize for my feelings. They're my feelings. Apologize for what you did. Like, it's not an apology to apologize for something I'm doing or feeling, right? So that just gives you kind of the sense. 7 is thank you for letting me know, or thank you for telling me. Number 8, this is a really interesting thing because, when you get in an argument, people say, why are you bringing up the past, right? Well, what you say is, I'm not bringing up the past, I'm bringing up the pattern, right? Which is really interesting. And then this is the same thing on 9. If you continue to blank, this will end the conversation. And 10, he talks about silence. He talks about silence and breath a lot, but the power of silence, I think he has a whole chapter on the silence. So there you go. That's the book. This is The Next Conversation, Argue Less, Talk More by Jefferson Fisher. It is a great book. It's a fun read. And you just automatically like the author. You can go check him out, I think, at thenextconversation.com. He has a bunch of material there. You can also subscribe to all his stuff. You can get his daily newsletter. You can get into his socials. I really liked it. I hope you liked it. I hope you have a great day. I look forward to talking to you again soon.